I understand that Vinnie more or less talked himself into the band, and you gave him, or if it was Paul, the name Vinnie Vincent, but also the alias The Wiz. What was his character really supposed to be? Was the initial plan that he would create magic on stage?
We don't know, but I think it was Paul
who
came up with that. First of all, his name didn't work. It wasn't Rock. He wanted to call himself Mick Fury.
Yeah.
We said, no, you're not going to be Mick Fury. And he was very upset. What's the matter with Vinnie Cusano? And we said, well, it sounds like a fruit vendor. It doesn't sound like a rocker. Hey, Vinnie Cusano, buy a fruit over here. It just doesn't sound like rock. And we came out of rehearsal when Vinnie was maybe in the band. And one of the fans was outside. And we said, hey, we're thinking of this guy. What do you think of his name? Vinnie Cusano. They said, that name sucks. Get rid of that name. And he was so upset. He couldn't believe that people didn't like his given name. So I think it was Paul who said, how about Vinnie Vincent? And he hated that.
From what I understand, neither you or Gene were sure about Vinnie from the day you met him. So the question is, of course, how come you hired him if you weren't sure about him?
I would say it goes beyond not being sure about him. We didn't want him in the band. We were faced with a tour that had already been booked. We were in need of financial refilling of the coffers, so to speak. We had bills to pay. We had obligations, financial obligations, and with a tour booked, we couldn't cancel the tour. We needed the tour. We needed the revenue stream, and we had believed that by that time we would have a guitar player, and we didn't. Honestly, we never took Vinnie with open arms, and we never took him without the feeling that it wasn't the right choice or an optimal choice. We had no choice.
Okay. And I believe it was you who gave him not only the name Vinnie Vincent, but also the alias, The Wiz. And you created his makeup design. But how did the wizard ID work with the Egyptian golden ankh symbol?
Really, it just started with looking at anyone's face and trying to think, how can we incorporate a creative makeup? And since we had been using silver, I thought, let's use gold on him. And the ankh symbol was so strong, and I just sketched the loop of the top on the forehead and the two arms, so to speak, stretched out over the eyebrows, and the other piece going down the nose. It just worked so well. But, truly, it didn't, I don't think ultimately it didn't resonate with people, and it didn't have people had already accepted the four original faces. So to start changing the faces really took away from the power of those characters. And those characters and those images were so identifiable. They were way more identifiable than the names of those people. So I think that, honestly, neither Vinnie's or Eric's makeup was ever given the gravitas, the sense of importance or weight or depth of the original four makeups.
Yeah, but I mean, how the wizard, the Ankh symbol and the wizard. I mean, where did the wizard come into the picture? Was he supposed to create magic on stage?
That part of it, I don't remember.
Okay.
But Vinnie Vincent was very much was inspired by a lot of the British musicians who often would take part of their last name and make it a first name, if you will. Yeah. The first one that comes to mind, of course, is Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
But that was done quite often. Whether it's Mitch Mitchell, the whole idea of doubling up your name. So Vinnie Vincent was, very much in keeping with that.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we were trying to create a guitar hero in some sense. Vinnie had big shoes to fill, and we wanted to make every attempt possible to make that successful.
A long-lasting rumor is that you also put down vocals for Vinnie's song Back on the Streets. It's a good song, and fans have been fantasizing about how a Paul Stanley vocal would sound on that song. Do you recall doing that song, Back on the Streets?
I remember being in the studio and playing around with it, but again, it just didn't feel right, and we didn't pursue it. There are so many stories about songs that either don't exist or I have no clue about what someone is talking about. I hear names of songs that aren't real songs or anything that we ever worked on. So that's part of being famous, is
Sure.
How many stories are out there that may not be so.
In your book, Face the Music, you write how producers weren't knocking at your door exactly after The Elder, and the ones you reached out to didn't return your call. Who did you reach out to?
Oh my gosh, I don't...
Is Mutt Lange one of those?
Yes, he was one of them.
Okay.
And he wasn't alone. It was, I think, as opposed to seeing the challenge and the excitement of reviving something and perhaps bringing it to a higher level, I think a lot of the people we spoke to just saw it as a sinking ship and an invitation onto the Titanic. Mm-hmm. So, regrettably, we were left to our own devices, but that turned out to be really what we needed.